Good morning dear students, welcome back to the class. Dear students, in our previous class we discussed about the problem solving process and also what are the steps are to be followed in this problem solving process. So here the problem solving process, it's a process that is encompasses the problem determination, deduplication and also analysis. So here this problem solving process are involving some steps. In that the first one is problem definition and the second one is problem analysis and the third one is the solution of the designs. So already about this we are discussed in the previous classes. So here the problem definition is which is the process of defining the problems and the analysis is which is analyzing a problem, and after defining and analyzing the problems we are going to design of the solution. In this design of the solution step which is using two tools for the finding the solution of the problem. That two tools are the one is algorithm and the second one is flowchart. So here already about the definition of the algorithms and characteristics of algorithm already we discussed in the previous class. So the algorithm is a step-by-step sequence of instructions to define a finite sequence of instructions to define the problems. And the problems na define ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ step by step finite sequence of instructions ne ನಾವು algorithm ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. So okay, about this already we discussed in our previous class. In this class we shall go to learn some examples of that algorithm. So the today concept is examples of an algorithm. So here and this the example of an algorithm. First we are going to take one example, that is algorithm to find compound interest. Algorithm to find compound interest. And this algorithm, that is compound interest. Compound interest we called it short form is CI. Here the CI stands for compound interest. Compound interest. So this particular algorithms we are going to find in this compound interest. To finding this, let me start an algorithm. The first step is start the algorithm. Start the algorithm, that is start. And the second one is inserting the values for the we take the numbers to find in the compound interest. So the second step is inputs the numbers, that is the second one is input the numbers, that is we are taking P, R and N. So first way we are going to start the algorithm, second way we are going to input the numbers. So in this the input numbers, the P is a principal amount and R is the rate of interest and can be the numbers. So after inputting, now we are going to calculate the third step is calculate the compound interest. So to calculate this compound interest, we are going to use the formula as CI is equal to P into the power of 1 plus R divided by 100 into T minus P. So in this given formula, the P is a principal amount and R is the rate of interest and P be the time period. So here we are going to calculate this compound interest. We are going to using this formula, that is Ci is equal to P into the power of 1 plus R by 100 into T minus P. So after this, the fourth step is print the compound interest. Print the compound interest. That is, the output is compound interest. So after getting the output, the algorithms are going to end. That is, end of the algorithm. End of algorithm. So this is an algorithm to find the compound interest. To finding this compound interest, first step is include. We are going to start the algorithm, and the second one is inserting a input to find this compound interest. The third one is calculating the compound interest. To calculating this, we are using this formula, that is Ci is equal to P into power of 1 plus R by 100 into T minus P. So here the P is the principal amount, R is the rate of interest, and P is the time period, and here the Ci is compound interest. So after this, we are getting a results, and finally the algorithms are comes to an end. So this is the first example. Now let me move on to the second example. Second algorithm. The algorithm is to find the greatest of three numbers. The second example is algorithm to find the greatest of three numbers. So, algorithm to find the greatest of three numbers. So, finding this greatest of three numbers, the first step is going to start the algorithm. And the second step is going to inserting the inputs. Read the inputs. So here we are taking up three numbers, that is A, B, C. So first start the algorithm. Second, read the inputs. The three inputs are the A, B, C, because here we are going to find the greatest of three numbers. So after inserting the input, the third step is assigning the A to a large. So here the third step is assigning the value of A to large. Large ge A value ನಾವು large ಅಂತ assign ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ. So here the large is equal to A. So here assigning the A to large. So here printing the large is equal to A. So after the fourth step is comparing this two numbers. Comparing the variables. Comparing the variables. Comparing the variables means here we are going to use the if statement. If B is greater than large value, then we are printing large is equal to B. So here this if statement is going to end. So here ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನಾವು A value ನ large ಅಂತ assign ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. Second step ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ remaining two variables B ಮತ್ತೆ C ಇದೆ. ಈ ಎರಡು variables values ನ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ variables ನ. If this B is greater than this large, then printing a large is equal to B. Similarly, again comparing the variable. Comparing the variable, that is if C is greater than large, if C is greater than large, then print large is equal to C. So again this if statement is going to end. And then A na large ಅಂತ ಅಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, if b is greater than large, ಈ b ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ a ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಗಿಂತ ಗ್ರೇಟರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ b ನ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸಪೋಸ್ if the c value which is greater than this a value, again we are going to print this large is equal to c. So finally the sixth step is getting the output, that is output is equal to large. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಮೂರು ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂಸ್ ನಾವು ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ಅಂತ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, we are getting this output. So after getting the output, the algorithms are comes to an end, that is exit an algorithm. So here let me take an example. If a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 4 and c is equal to 6. So this is an example, the values of a variable. ಈ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಅಸೈನಿಂಗ್ a to large, ಈ a ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ನಾವು large ಅಂತ ಅಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. Again, if now the value of a is 5, so again comparing this variable, that b is larger, b is greater than this larger, ಅಂದ್ರೆ b value ಈ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ a ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಗಿಂತ ಗ್ರೇಟರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ then we can print that large is equal to b. But here the b is smaller than this a, this condition is not satisfied. So again comparing this variable, if the c value which is greater than this a value, then printing the large is equal to c. So here in this given example, the output value is large, means c is equal to 6. So c value is larger because the c value is greater than this a value. So this condition is satisfied. Okay, this is an algorithm to find the greatest of three numbers. Okay, this is the second example. Now we'll go on to the one more example, that is algorithm to find. Note down this. Now we'll move on to the third example of this algorithm is algorithm to find an factorial of n numbers. Factorial of n numbers. This is the third example. Now the third example is algorithm to find the factorials of n numbers. In this given algorithm, we are going to find the factorials of n numbers and the result are going to store the variables. Result are going to store the variable. Here the I is a variable which is a for loop counter which starts from the 0 to n. So here the I is a variable. So here in this algorithm we are going to find the factorials of n number. N numbers to factorials to find out quantity. After this the result is going to store in a variable. Here the I is a variable which starts from 0 to n. So in this factorials of an algorithm which is defined only for the positive integer. Positive integers ಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಈ factorials ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ define ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay. Now let me start the algorithm. So as usual, the first step is start the algorithm and the second step is input. Given the input, that is we are taking here input is n numbers, because why we taking here n is in this algorithms we are going to find the factorials of our n numbers. So here the input is n. So after inserting an inputs, now we are going to initialize the factorial. The third step is initialize the factorial to 1. Initialize the factorial to 1. So the factorial is equal to 1. ಇಲ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, in 1 ಗೆ ನಾವು factorial ನ initialize ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. That means factorial. Initializing means 1 factorial. So factorial is equal to 1. So after initializing this factorial to 1, now the fourth step is compute the factorials. Compute the factorials by the successive multiplication. So here, after initializing the factorial to 1, now we are going to another step, that is compute this factorial by the successive multiplication. That is the for I is equal to 1 to n. So here this factorial is equal to factorial into I, and thus for s n. Here the fourth step is compute the factorial by the successive multiplication, because suppose example, if we are taking a 5 factorials, we are going to compute this factorial value by the successive multiplication. That means the 5 factorial value means 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Similarly, the 4 factorial value is 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. So here the third step is initializing the factorial to 1. So another initializing, we are going to compute the factorials by this successive multiplication. So here the for I is equal to 1 to n. So as I told in the past, this variables, I is a variable which starts from the 0 to n. 0 in the n ಗೆ start ಆಗುತ್ತೆ I variable value. But here we are taking for I is equal to 1 to n, because in this algorithm we are initializing this factorial to 1. ಈ algorithm ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು factorial ನ 1 ಗೆ initialize ಮಾಡಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ, so this I variable value which starts from 1 to n. Okay, did you understand this? Here the variable I values which starts from 0 to n, but in this algorithm we are initializing this factorial value to 1. So here the variable value I which starts from 1 to n. 1 ಇಂದ n ಗೆ start ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So the factorial is equal to factorial into I. This is the conditions after this for loop is ended. So after computing this factorial by the successive multiplication, the fifth step is print the factorial of given number. Factorial of given number, that is output is equal to factorial. And finally, after getting the output, the algorithms are going to exit state. Okay, this is an algorithm to find the factorials of n numbers. So here first step is start the algorithm, and the second step is inputs the value. So here we are taking a n number of values, because in this algorithm we are going to find the factorials of n number. N numbers the factorials the find out ಮಾಡಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ we are taking a n number of values. So after taking an inputs, we are going to initialize the factorial to 1. 1 ಗೆ factorial na initialize ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, that is 1 factorial. So factorial is equal to 1. After initializing this, compute this factorial by the successive multiplication. For example, ನಾವು I factorial 5 factorials ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 ನ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. Suppose if we are taking only 2 factorial, we are going to factorial successive multiplication of this factorial to s2 into 1. So factorial I is equal to 1 to n value. Here by taking 1 value means the factorials are initializing to 1. So for I is equal to 1 to n. So factorial is equal to factorial into I. This for loop is ended. After this we are getting printing the output, that is output factorial. Finally the algorithms are comes to an end. So this is our third example of the algorithm. Okay, now Lastly, we are discussing one more example. That is, the fourth one is algorithm to find the Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci sequence. Fourth example for this algorithm is algorithm to find this Fibonacci sequence. In this algorithm, we are going to find the Fibonacci sequence. So this algorithm generates the Fibonacci sequence up to some limits, that is limit n. These algorithms are generating this Fibonacci sequence up to some limits n, that is 0, 1, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, 8, 11, some etc. n. So n is algorithms which the Fibonacci sequence are generates from some limit, that is n limit, that is from 0 to n. Okay, here the first step is start the algorithm and the second step is input value. Here also we are taking input as n numbers, because in this algorithm also we are going to find the Fibonacci sequence up to some limit n limit varge ನಾವು Fibonacci sequence na find out ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. Here also we are taking the input as n. So after taking an input n is initializing. The third step is initializing the variable. Initializing the variable, that is the first is equal to 0 and second is equal to 1 and the term is equal to 2. So here initializing the variable is in this up to n limits. Here 0 and 1 are the initial terms. And if you want to get a third term, we should add in the previous two terms, then we can get a third term. Andre ಇಲ್ಲಿ 0 ಮತ್ತೆ 1 ಅನ್ನುವಂತದ್ದು ಇನಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಟರ್ಮ್, ನಮಗೆ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. And this process will continue until the last number is lesser than or equal to n. So the last term lesser than or equal to n. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ Fibonacci sequence ಯಲ್ಲಿ up to n limits ವರೆಗೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, that is from 0 to n. Here the zeros and ones are the initial term. So if you want to get a third term, adding this, we should add in the first and second term. First and the second terms na adre we are getting a third term, and until this process are continue or repeated until we getting a the last term is lesser than or equal to this limit up to n limit varge lesser ಅಥವಾ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಬರೋವರೆಗೂ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ನ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ until we are getting this last term as lesser than or equal to n. So here initializing the variable is first is equal to 0, second is equal to 1 and the term is equal to 2. So the fourth step is print the value of first and second. First ಮತ್ತೆ second value ನ ನಾವು print ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. So here the print first and second. So the next step is if you want to get a third term, adding this previous two terms. So here the third term is equal to first plus second. ಸೊ ನಮಗೆ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ again we are using a while loop. Here the condition is the term is lesser than or equal to n, then print the third variable. So here the first variable is equal to second and second variable is equal to third and third variable is equal to first plus second and the term is equal to term plus 1. So again this while s n and finally print the, so this while s n and this result as algorithms are going to exit. That is sixth, this is sixth step and this is seventh step. So here this algorithms are used to finding the Fibonacci sequence. This Fibonacci sequence which is limit n, that is 0 to n. Here the zeros and ones are the initial values. So ನಮಗೆ third value ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು previous two terms ನ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, add ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. So ಎಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ add ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ until the last term is lesser than or equal to n. So here the first step is start the algorithms and inserting the input, that is n number of value. Why we are taking n numbers means here we are finding the Fibonacci sequence up to some limit n. So here taking the n number of inputs. After taking inputs, we are going to initializing the variable, that is first variable is equal to 0, second is equal to 1 and third is equal to 2. So after initializing, we are going to print the values of first and second. Initialize ಮಾಡಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು first ಮತ್ತೆ second variables ನ print ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ first second ನ print ಮಾಡಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಮಗೆ third value ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ we are going to add in this first and second variable. So here the while loop we are using, here the term is lesser than or equal to n. ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಈ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ n ಗಿಂತ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಲೆಸರ್ ಆಗೋವರೆಗೂ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಈ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ನ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. So here the print the third value. If this condition is satisfied, printing the third value. Here the first is equal to second, second is equal to third and third is equal to first plus second and term is equal to term plus 1, and here the while loop is ending. Then the algorithms are going to an exit state. Okay, this is an example for algorithm to find the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, these are all about the examples of an given algorithm. Okay, I will stop here. We will continue in the next class. Thank you all.